Hello. I'm a woman in my 30s living in New York. I ended up divorcing my husband, Mark, who was having an affair, and my mother-in-law, Susan, who knew about it and defended him. It was the day I came home after spending a long time at the hospital caring for my mom. The moment I opened the front door, the house was spotless. It was completely different from the day I left the house. And there was even an unfamiliar smell. At that moment, I felt my heart sink when I faced Susan, who was standing calmly in the kitchen, and an unfamiliar woman next to her, holding a vacuum cleaner. If you can't do it, I called someone. If you're unhappy, then divorce him. Susan even blamed me, saying that my husband had an affair because I was away from home for a long time, and told me to leave. But 10 minutes after I packed my bags and left, Susan was frothing at the mouth and wailing. What happened 10 minutes later? And why was Susan wailing? I'll start my story right now, so please listen carefully. I don't know where to begin. But to start with how I met my husband. We met through a mutual friend and got married after a long courtship, and it's been 5 years. During our courtship, his father passed away, and after attending the funeral, I naturally started visiting his family. My mother-in-law was very difficult with me, saying she was grateful that I was meeting her son, who was a burden with a single mother. My son's conditions aren't popular, but I'm still so grateful that you're dating him. I'll treat you very well. However, I thought she was a kind and good-hearted mother-in-law. But I was mistaken. As soon as we returned from our honeymoon, she would suddenly show up, open the refrigerator, interfere with my household chores, and make many demands, like feed this to my son, or do that for him. Even though we were both working, she would force me to call her to check on her son and demand that I visit her often. At first, I thought, she's alone, so she must be lonely. That's why she's doing this. I thought that after getting married, she would worry about her son and daughter-in-law living well, so she would nag. So, out of sympathy, I contacted her often and visited her often. I also often gave her gifts and pocket money, even on no special occasion. But gradually, I started to feel like I had stolen someone else's husband and married him. My husband, too, at some point, began to act overbearing, backed by his mother, often saying things like, "Isn't housework something women do? I'm a man, so I'm not good at it." I don't know. He would often say, "My mom did this," or "My mom did that." And about 2 years after we got married, he even brought up the idea of living together. What did the hospital say? Is she very ill? They say it looks like early depression. So, how about living with mom? What? Why so suddenly? No, I don't mean living together forever, just until mom's condition gets a little better. Since my mother-in-law lived alone, I was also worried. And as my husband said, we decided to live together for the time being. My mother-in-law, who came home right after receiving a call from my husband, was naturally very happy. However, I was also working, and my husband also left for work in the morning and came home in the evening, so there was no one to take care of my mother-in-law, except for the days I left work early. The days we ate dinner together were few and far between. I naturally thought my mother-in-law would understand, but she didn't. It was my mother-in-law who said that she wanted me to earn money, but a woman should always be at home. In the end, living with my mother-in-law didn't last long. And since there wasn't much difference whether we lived separately or together, my mother-in-law packed her bags and left in less than a year, saying it was more comfortable to live as before. My husband was not a person who was good only to his family from the beginning, nor was he good to my family. However, after my mother-in-law left, perhaps because he was in a bad mood, he gradually began to show a different side than before, and after receiving money from my family, he changed completely. My family had a piece of land that they had not been able to dispose of for many years due to a legal battle, but they finally disposed of it and got some cash. My husband and I bought a house with a loan when we got married, but since my family got some cash, they said they would pay off the loan. Mom, are you sure? Of course, I know it's hard to pay off debt with your salary. You two earn enough. And you have plenty of you. But your mom and dad want to do it for you. I refused several times, but my parents insisted on doing it, so I eventually accepted. That way, we paid off our house loan immediately, and our debt was resolved. Perhaps because of this, my husband was even better to my family. Whatever the reason, it was good that my husband was grateful to my parents, so I thought it was good. Honey, I'll be even better to your mom and dad. Just watch. What do you mean, better? You don't have to. You're doing enough as it is. No, I'll do better. It's okay, really. And I have one request. What is it? Just say it. Don't be too disappointed if I miss family events. I'm missing them because of work, not because I don't want to go. Oh, of course. I understand that much. What do you take me for? However, my husband said this, and it didn't last long. Even when Susan suddenly visited, my husband acted as if it was none of his business. No matter who came, my husband often lay down. And when Susan came, it was always my job to serve her, from meals to fruit, and to listen to everything she said until she left. This was really tiring. Even though it seemed easy, I also wanted to rest on weekends. Susan always wanted to do everything together if my husband and I tried to do something. Especially when we went out to eat, my husband would always call Susan, and even when we went out for a meal on the weekend, his seat next to him was always for his mother, and the passenger seat in the car was for his mother. If we went on an outing, my husband and mother-in-law would be in front, and I would walk far behind. Even if I didn't intend to, this situation always happened whenever his mother came. In addition, even though we both worked, I did all the housework and cooked all the meals. It was common for her to call me frequently to make kimchi, saying my husband liked to eat kimchi that I didn't even eat, and she often cried, not wanting to go to my parents' house on holidays because she didn't want to be alone. But I felt like I was going crazy living like this, so I reduced my calls, visits, pocket money, and gifts, and started saying what needed to be said then and there. Mom, I'll take care of my own household. I know you're worried, but please just watch. When she demanded a lot of pocket money, I told her that our living expenses were tight these days, and I also told her to stop making kimchi so often because only my husband ate it, and it would go bad. This made me feel a little relieved, but this time, my husband was the problem. You're so heartless. What are you talking about? Don't you feel sorry for my mom? Why would your mom be pitiful? She's healthy and has no ailments. It turned out that my mother-in-law was complaining to my husband with tears behind my back without saying anything in front of me. So my husband thought I was being even harsher on my mother-in-law. Then one day, my mother-in-law came to our house again without a word. I thought she knew how uncomfortable it was to live together. But my mother-in-law came again with her bags packed. It was the day I came home feeling lonely after going to the hospital alone because my mom was in the hospital with a chronic illness. As soon as I opened the front door, I saw 2 large suitcases, and in the living room, Susan and Mark were laughing heartily while eating grilled meat. Oh, you're here. What happened? What do you mean? What happened? Is there a problem with a mother coming to her son's house? I was so lonely that I called our Mark, thinking of staying at your house for a few days, and our Mark came to pick me up. But you don't even make dinner for your husband and go around so much? I'll stay for a while and teach you some housework. Last time, when we lived together, you were too busy, so I hardly saw your face and just left. But this time I'm determined, so you brace yourself, too. Understand? My husband, who had never once accompanied me to visit my sick mother, even though he said he was tired, senselessly said, "Yes. Learn some of Mom's side dishes. It costs money to learn how to cook, so you're lucky. You're learning for free from Mom." At that moment, I really felt like my mind went blank. I didn't even have the strength to argue, so I just went into the room and sat on the bed alone. But my husband followed me in and started spouting nonsense, saying I was rude and that he would have starved if it weren't for his mother. So I said, "Then just go live with your mother and eat her food." Even after I said that, my husband didn't understand the situation and was frantic, telling me to apologize to his mother immediately. "Hurry up and go apologize to Mom." Apologize for what I did wrong? Do I have to say it myself? Since I don't know, tell me. There's an adult outside, so why did you come in first to rest? What? Come out now. And you have to do the dishes too. Why should I do the dishes they ate? I'm really tired today, so please just leave it. Please. After that day, I came home late. Part of it was deliberately late because of my mother-in-law, but more than that, it was difficult to leave work early because of work, and I often arrived home after 10 p.m. because I stopped by the hospital where my mother was hospitalized. So, my mother-in-law waited for me until late for a while, but that only lasted for a day or two. And since I came home late every day, my mother-in-law also got tired and eventually left. My husband naturally had complaints about me like this, but he couldn't openly say anything. He knew very well that I wasn't going out to play, but was always busy because of work and my mother. My family had my dad and could have hired a caregiver, but my dad couldn't always be at the hospital because of work, and we changed caregivers twice. But they didn't get along with my mom, so I often went to the hospital out of anxiety. Still, I didn't neglect my housework. I always cooked side dishes for my husband and diligently cleaned, just in case something came up later. Living like that, my greatest joy was sleeping during lunch breaks at work due to lack of sleep. That's how busy I was every day. Mom is having surgery next week, and Dad is in another state. So I guess I'll have to go. Okay. Of course you should go. So you'll be staying at the hospital? The hospital is close to my parents' house. So I'll commute back and forth. Should I take you? You have luggage. No, it's okay. My husband often spoke with an irritated tone when talking about the hospital, but he looked particularly excited that day. A few days later, I packed some clothes and went to my parents' house, where I commuted to work and took care of my mom. Others might say that I would be comfortable living with my family, but I was struggling. I wasn't taking time off work, and I was working and going to the hospital almost every day. But there was something else that made me even more difficult. I had been at the hospital for a long time caring for my mom, and when I came home that day, my mother-in-law was there. But my mother-in-law wasn't alone in the house. When I opened the front door, I saw unfamiliar shoes, and the sound of the vacuum cleaner and my mother-in-law's voice were noisy. No! You have to do this too. The vacuum cleaner is vacuuming. So why are you so slow? What are you doing now? Oh, you surprised me. When did you get here? Just now. But what are you doing? Can't you tell by looking? I'm cleaning. So why are you cleaning my house? If you had done it properly, would I have called someone to clean like this? Who is this person? She's someone I know. She's so good at housework. She's on a whole different level than you. Look how clean the house is. That day, I told Susan to leave because the situation was so unbelievable, but she turned the tables on me and shouted at me to leave. Leave? Why should I leave? I called someone because you couldn't do it. If you're unhappy, then divorce my son. She suddenly brought up divorce, cutting off everything, so I said, divorce? Yes. I don't like a daughter-in-law who disrespects her mother-in-law and doesn't listen to her, so imagine how my son must feel. So it's better to divorce. No. It's because of that woman, isn't it? What? What are you talking about now? You're telling me to divorce because you can live with that obedient woman, aren't you? I told you she's just someone I know. How many times do I have to tell you? You're being rude to someone you've never met. Apologize immediately. Oh, really? At that moment, I took out a few photos from my bag and threw them in front of Susan. The photos I threw in front of Susan and the other woman showed the other woman cleaning our house. There were also photos of her with my husband. In fact, I already knew everything. I knew my husband was having an affair. I also knew that Susan was pretending not to know that her son was having an affair. Why did I pretend not to know? It was because of my parents. My mom was hospitalized, and if she knew about this, her condition might worsen. So I was waiting for the right moment. I also needed time to investigate and prepare separately. But that day, my mother-in-law brought up divorce on her own. So I thought, this is it. But what exactly is the relationship between this woman and you, Mom? She's someone I know. How do you know her? Why are you asking that? What does it have to do with you? Why wouldn't it have anything to do with me? Choi Yun-hee is 25 years old. She's the other woman who's having an affair with your son. So she has something to do with me too. You can tell by looking at those photos. If she's someone you know, why is she pictured with your son like that? And why is she cleaning someone else's house? What? Oh, how did you get these photos? I know more than this. Should I tell you more? But how did I know that the other woman was coming and going from our house even though we didn't have a home camera? It was because of the robot vacuum cleaner. This was something I hadn't even thought of. My husband was not at all interested in housework and didn't know how to use the home appliances in the house. So he didn't know that the robot vacuum cleaner had a CCTV function. Specifically, it didn't have functions like hearing voices or having conversations like a home camera, but it did have a function that showed the inside of the house like a CCTV. The first time I found out about my husband's infidelity was when he went on a business trip. My husband had never been on a business trip, neither during our courtship nor after we got married. He didn't have to go on business trips due to the nature of his work. Suddenly, a business trip? What kind of business trip are you going on? Am I not allowed to go on business trips? No. It's just that you've never had a business trip schedule before. Anyway, it just happened. So where are you going? Japan. My husband's company did have a client in Japan. However, I knew that the department that went on business trips was separate, so it was a bit strange that my husband was going. Still, the company showed me a notice about the business trip schedule, and after seeing it myself, I told him to have a good trip, as it was a business trip. However, my husband did go to Japan, but the business trip was for another employee, so he had copied the schedule notice and shown it to me, and he had gone on a hot spring trip with a female colleague from the same company. While my husband was on a business trip, I looked at his laptop and saw that he was logged into a chat app, and that's how I found out he was seeing another woman. By examining the conversation history, I found out that my husband's mistress was a female colleague from his company, and I was surprised to see that she was in her 20s. What surprised me even more was that they hadn't just met recently, but had been having an inappropriate relationship for a long time. My husband had been cheating even before my mother was hospitalized. That's when it all began. Whenever I had time, I would search my husband's phone, laptop, and even his car's black box. Of course, I couldn't check every day. My husband often came home late, and there were days when I couldn't check anything because I had to go to the hospital to care for my mother. But on those days, I was able to find other evidence. It was the robot vacuum cleaner. My husband and his mistress committed adultery at home whenever I was away. The robot vacuum cleaner worked fine even when I wasn't home, whether they spilled something they ordered or not. Each time, the two of them were filmed, and my husband didn't even know it. In addition, the other woman would frequently come to the house to clean. Anyone would think she was my husband's wife. That's how much she was cleaning the house. So, even if I didn't try hard, whenever the other woman came home and turned on the vacuum cleaner, evidence would inevitably be left, making it much easier for me to collect evidence of their affair. Checking the black box of the car my husband drove was a bit difficult. If my husband even suspected something, he could erase all the evidence, so I thought it would be better not to catch his eye. So I secretly came in early in the morning when he was sleeping. One day, I was at my mom's hospital and planned to sleep at my parents' house. But that day, I found it suspicious that my husband had called me so many times. So I went home early in the morning. My husband kept calling me even when I went to work in the morning and ate lunch, and even when I left work in the evening and went to my mom's hospital. Hello? Did you get to work okay? Oh, why? No, I was just wondering if you got to work okay. Okay, then go to work. He called again after lunch. Did you eat lunch? But do you have something to say to me? Why are you calling so much today? No, I just called because I was curious. I was wondering what you ate. I was worried you might be skipping lunch to work. My husband called again on my way home from work. Did you leave work? Oh, just now. So, you're going to your mom's hospital? Yeah. You're not coming home, right? Yeah. Why are you calling so much today? No, I was just curious how your mom is doing. When you go to the hospital, can you let me talk to your mom? If you're so curious, you can call my mom directly. Or come visit her. I want to. But what if I call and disturb your mom while she's resting? Or what if she's in the middle of treatment and I call? I don't know the situation. And even if many people go to the hospital, they don't let you into the room anyway. Anyway, when you arrive at the hospital, please let me talk to your mom. I knew. I thought the other woman was coming home again that day. So he called several times a day to confirm that I wasn't coming home. So that day, I left the hospital, went to my parents' house, and after much thought, went home. It was an old apartment, so there was no notification at home even if a car came, so my husband didn't know I had arrived. My husband and I each had a car to go to work, and we sometimes swapped cars depending on the situation. So we each had a spare key. I didn't even have to go inside the house that day to check the black box in my husband's car. As I expected, the other woman had come home that day. She had come home with my husband in his car. Their affectionate behavior was already outrageous in the car. Just listening to their conversations, anyone would mistake them for a couple. In this way, not only that day, but whenever I had time, I would frequently come home in the middle of the night to secure the black box. And on days when I came home instead of going to the hospital, I would wait until my husband was asleep and then search his phone, taking pictures of anything that could be evidence and saving them separately. During this process, I confirmed that my mother-in-law knew about my husband's affair. Just listening to the text messages and phone calls between my husband and his mother, my mother-in-law was truly amazing. To the point where I couldn't help but curse. Who was that girl I saw in front of the house earlier? Oh, she's just a colleague from work. Do you think I'm that clueless? Sunju doesn't know, right? Yes. Okay. I'll act discreetly, Mom. But you be careful too. Don't get caught unnecessarily and let it become a weakness. Understood? My mother-in-law knew that her son was having an affair, but instead of stopping him, she even told him to be careful. She even compared me to the other woman and even told him to divorce me since we had no children and try to make things work with the other woman. Hello? Is Sunju at the hospital again? Yes. Oh. If it's going to be like this, why don't you two just break up here and try to make things work with Yeonhee? From what I see, Yeonhee is perfect for you. Sunju was never that great from the beginning. She acts like she's so smart and always acts like she knows everything. But she's a fool who doesn't even know her husband is cheating. Whenever I say something, she's always, Mom. That's not it. She always tries to teach an elder. I don't like it. But Yeonhee, I've seen her a few times, and she's so considerate, and she listens so well to whatever I say. That's how a woman should be. She should know to fear her mother-in-law and respect her husband. And since there's a bit of an age difference between you two, I think Yeonhee will probably adore you. So, you told Yeonhee you'd give her a house? Yes. You're my only child, so your happiness is my happiness. If I treat you well, why wouldn't I give you this house? It's fine to give her the house and live together. How shocked I was to hear such a conversation. I work for a publishing company. I was quite recognized and promoted quickly, so my salary was usually higher than my husband's during our marriage. Then, when my husband got promoted, it became somewhat similar. Until my parents paid off the house loan, I worked like a dog to earn money because I wanted to pay off the debt quickly, move to a better house, and also have a child. But unexpectedly, my parents paid off the debt. And as expenses decreased, I thought I could live happily with my husband like this. Then my mother's health deteriorated, and it's true that I couldn't focus on the house as much as before, but I didn't completely neglect it either. When I finished work late, since there was nothing for me to do even if I went to the hospital, I came home and did the accumulated laundry, cleaned, and made side dishes. I did all this just in case I would be criticized for neglecting housework later. In fact, it was also my ambition to do everything well. But it's also true that I, too, was getting increasingly tired from housework, work, and caring for my mother. When I found out that my husband was having an affair, I felt like giving up on everything. If my mother-in-law had done that without knowing anything, I would have just reprimanded my husband and divorced him, but I hated my mother-in-law even more. So I meticulously deceived them both, pretending not to know anything, and started collecting evidence one by one. That day, my mother-in-law looked greatly surprised when I knew so much about the other woman, and after seeing the photos, she was speechless. The other woman standing next to her was also the same, but soon she shouted loudly, "This is all your fault! You're blaming me in this situation? Why else would my son have an affair? It's because you left the house empty." That day, my mother-in-law only defended and shielded her son, saying that my husband had an affair because of me, and then she brought up divorce again. Don't you know that famous saying? A man is what his woman makes him. Whose fault is it that this happened because you couldn't do it? You should have been loyal to your husband if you got married. Why did you go to your parents' house? When you come home from work, no one's home. Wouldn't you have other thoughts? Except for my mom's surgery this time. I always came home when I went to the hospital. Your son knows that, too. In fact, he was the one who told me to stay longer. Should I tell him not to go? Don't you know what kind of person my son is? He's a sensitive and kind-hearted person. Men are all like that, and a woman should take care of a man. Since you didn't do that properly, it's natural for him to have another woman. She even said such absurd things and told me to divorce and leave immediately if I was unhappy. So I smiled and said, "Okay." And then I immediately went into the master bedroom, packed my bags, and came out. If you leave now, don't ever think about getting back together with my son. Understood? Of course, but I don't think that's something I should hear. What? Isn't that something you should hear, Mom? Please tell them clearly. Whether you meet them directly or call them, tell them that from this moment on, they shouldn't even think about getting back together with me. Oh, what kind of crazy talk is that? Then, as you wish, Mom, I'll leave. My mother-in-law seemed happy that I was packing my bags and leaving, and one corner of her mouth lifted as she even shouted for me to leave quickly. But exactly 10 minutes later, the person frothing at the mouth and wailing was my mother-in-law. The place I had been before coming home that day was the hospital where my mom was hospitalized. The surgery was progressing well, and my dad was going to stay there for a while. So it was the day I decided to go home, but on the way home, I got a call from a lawyer's office. Oh, really? Then I'll go right now. They said that the evidence I had collected was sufficient to start a lawsuit. So I immediately went to meet the lawyer and heard the detailed explanation of what to do, and since we were going in the same direction, I came with the lawyer, and it turned out that the lawyer's house was not far from where I lived. So after taking out my luggage, I immediately called the lawyer. After I quickly explained the situation, the lawyer said, "Okay," and came to my house a few minutes later. And I personally opened the front door for him. The lawyer went into the house, and I stayed outside with the front door slightly ajar so I could hear all the conversations happening inside. "Who are you? Here's my business card. I'm Miss Seonju Lee's lawyer. So if you have anything to say in the future, please don't call her directly. Contact me." What? What did you say? That day, the lawyer clearly explained my husband's affair in front of my mother-in-law and the other woman. And he also mentioned to my mother-in-law, who knew all the facts but pretended not to, that she was also responsible for the breakdown of the marriage, and that a claim for alimony was possible. My mother-in-law must have been very happy before meeting the lawyer. She seemed to have taken a liking to the other woman. So when I said I would pack my bags and leave the house as she told me to, she must have thought that her son and the other woman would remarry. Unlike me, the other woman was young and docile. So she listened well to my mother-in-law, which is why she was asked to clean. The other woman, who was told to do it, also seemed to be very intimidated by my mother-in-law. Anyway, my mother-in-law, who knew nothing, must have thought that if my husband and I just divorced, it would be over, and that her son could live well with the other woman, but it was a very big misunderstanding. That day, After hearing from the lawyer about what would happen in the future, my mother-in-law seemed very surprised and quickly called my husband, and my husband also seemed very surprised and came home right after talking to his mother. Seeing me outside the front door, he said, "What are you doing here? What about Mom's care? Is that you, Sunju?" "Oh, Mom, if you're here, why are you standing outside? Come in." My husband quickly went into the house at his mother's words, and he was indeed flustered by the situation where his mother, the other woman, and the lawyer were all gathered. Since I was also outside, he was probably racking his brain at that moment about what to do. But no matter how much he thought, nothing changed. Because I had all the evidence from before, the only thing he could say was the same thing as his mother. "I don't know anything about this. Don't try to drag me into this." "That's right. My mom doesn't know." "Oh, really? And am I 100% at fault?" "What do you mean by that?" "It's true that you neglected your family. You're also at fault. Do you think I have nothing to say? I've been patient for a long time too." "Okay, let's hear it. What exactly have you been patient about? What have you been patient about? You being away from home? You neglecting my mom? How much more do I have to do? You know that my mom is sick and hospitalized, and when I said she needed a guardian next to her for the surgery, you told me to go? You told me not to worry about the house? And now you're saying it's because I left the house empty? How can you say the same thing as your mother? If your child has an affair, instead of reprimanding them, you just protect them. Oh, I told you I didn't know. Don't you know that if you lie in court, the alimony you have to pay me will only increase? And you don't know how scary perjury is. In fact, I didn't know much about the law, whether this applied to divorce trials, but I just said it, and my mother-in-law took it quite seriously. It was true that she was lying. Anyway, that day, my husband claimed that since I had neglected the family, the cause of the family breakdown was not solely his fault, but also my responsibility. That was, in a word, nonsense. "But what are you going to do, you? The time you met that woman was a long time ago." "What? That was long before my mom was hospitalized, so I never left the house." "In fact, you used the excuse of a business trip to Japan and probably took that woman on a hot spring trip." At that, my husband suddenly fell silent. He lost his words, knowing that I had a lot of evidence. If things continued like this, his mother would also have to pay me alimony, and the other woman would be in an awkward situation, so he tried to smooth things over by saying it was a misunderstanding belatedly, but it was no use. That day, the other woman just stood there without saying anything until the end. And then, perhaps understanding the atmosphere, she hastily left. My husband made an absurd excuse, saying that he did it to teach me a lesson. His mother also said that her son just did as he was told. "So, you thought I would be more devoted to the family if there was another woman? Huh? Is that even logical? Stop saying such nonsense. That's enough. Let's do this by law. You'll only learn your lesson if we go by the law." My mother-in-law, not getting her way, slumped down and started wailing. But I threw the divorce papers at my husband regardless. Naturally. My husband, knowing that divorcing me in this situation would be disadvantageous, said he would never divorce me. "Do you think I can't divorce you if you don't sign? It's a bit of a headache, but I'll sue. And I'm also going to start a lawsuit against the other woman, so be aware of that. No, Sunju, she's just a colleague from our company, so how can you do something like that with a colleague from our company? If I met a male colleague from our company like that, would you understand?" "Stop with the ridiculous talk." After that day, I officially started the lawsuit. My preparations were perfect. The evidence was also very solid. As the lawsuit began, rumors naturally spread at my husband's company. They said that the two of them were in an illicit relationship, and because of that, a divorce lawsuit and a lawsuit against the other woman were underway. The other woman quickly submitted her resignation from the company, saying that her family shouldn't find out, but she didn't live alone. And she lived with her parents, so how could they not know? In the end, it was only a matter of time. The other woman's mother, knowing all the facts, came to our house one day. I naturally thought she would apologize first, but she didn't. That day, a big commotion broke out. Where is that bastard? Come out now. Who are you? Is that you, Park Jun-young? Oh, who are you? I'm Yeon-hee's mother. What are you going to do? How dare you, a married man, seduce my daughter when you can't even take responsibility? What crime did my daughter commit? Why is my daughter an adulteress? Cancel the lawsuit. Cancel it immediately. But that day, I was also at home, but the other woman's mother couldn't say anything to me. Of course. She knew it herself. She knew her daughter was also at fault. But perhaps she wanted to vent her anger on my husband because of the lawsuit against the other woman. So she not only showered him with insults but also grabbed his hair. Ah. Let go and talk. You bastard. Do you know what kind of situation my daughter is in because of you? Ah. I'm also having a hard time. And why are you only doing this to me? I didn't force her to meet me. What? You idiot? Are you even calling that a proper statement? Sunju, don't just stand there, try to stop her, huh? Handle it yourself. Don't try to drag me into this. So, when you were having an affair, you should have been prepared for this much. That day, my husband was grabbed so hard that a handful of his hair fell out, and watching it made me feel refreshed. The lawsuit continued as scheduled. The other woman had already submitted her resignation and was not coming to work. And my husband continued to resist even after the rumors spread, but it seemed he couldn't bear it anymore and finally submitted his resignation belatedly. And a short time later, we finally divorced. I also received alimony from his mother. The most important lawsuit against the other woman also ended with a judgment. So all the lawsuits concluded. With this lawsuit, the other woman left my ex-husband, and after disposing of the house they lived in for asset division, my ex-husband moved into his ex-in-law's house. Excluding the loan paid off by my family, the amount of money my ex-husband took from the asset division was not much. As his ex-mother-in-law also had to pay me alimony, my ex-husband was the one who regretted it. I thought I would never meet him again after the divorce. But one day I ran into him in front of my company. Are you here to see me? By any chance? Huh? You're leaving now. We have no reason to see each other anymore. I know, but I was just curious about how you're living. Why should you be curious about that? By what, right? I'm not happy to see you. Even by chance. Just go, but my ex-husband kept following me. You look good. How's your mom? My mom, no, your mother. How is she? She's still in the hospital. What are you talking about? She's been discharged already. Can she be discharged? Then did you think my mom would be in the hospital forever? Well, judging by your conversation with your mom, you said you didn't want to spend money and worry about caring for your mom, so anyone would think my mom had some terrible disease. But what do we do? My mom recovered after the surgery and now only goes to the hospital once a month. At that, my ex-husband suddenly blocked my way and immediately knelt down on the street. When I ignored him and tried to pass, he came in front of me again and knelt down, saying he was sorry. What are you doing? I'm sorry, Sunju. I was completely wrong. If I could go back to that time, I really wouldn't make that choice. I don't know why I did that. I must have lost my mind. From what I see, you still seem to have lost your mind. What? If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to ever show my face to me again. Why else would I appear before you even if I'm ashamed? I really regretted it. No, I still regret it. Then I'll make you regret it even more today. Oh, I slapped my ex-husband's cheek that day. Very hard. Regardless of whether people were watching. It was the first time in my life I had ever hit someone, especially slapped them. My ex-husband, who had been slapped by me, put both hands on his slapped cheek and said, "Did you just hit me?" Yes, I hit you. You still don't seem to have come to your senses, so I hit you to make you come to your senses. Why? But judging by your expression, one hit doesn't seem to be enough. Come here. I'll hit the other side too. No, Sunju, let's talk. Everyone here is watching. People have been watching us ever since you knelt down on the street. Aren't you ashamed that you got divorced because you had an affair? If you divorce like that, why don't you live your own life? Why do you come to your ex-wife and do something that makes you get hit? Huh? As people gathered, he started talking about my ex-husband one by one, and he was frantic, telling me to stop, his face red. But since he still wouldn't leave, I started talking about what he had done with the other woman again. Then he said, "Oh, I'll go. I'm going. So be quiet. If you know that what you did was shameful, don't ever come looking for me again. Understood?" That day, my ex-husband ran away so quickly that his shoes came off, and he hesitated, probably too ashamed to pick them up again, and just ran away. Watching him, I briefly blamed myself for marrying such a man. But I was already married and divorced, so what could I do? I thought the best thing to do was not to make the same mistake again since I couldn't undo it. After that day, my ex-husband, perhaps afraid that something like that would happen again, never appeared before me again. I heard that he got a new job and is working at a company. But rumors are spreading at that company too. Since he has to work in the same field, rumors are inevitable. Why would he do something that would ruin his own life? In the end, isn't it all his own doing? I didn't move back in with my parents after the divorce. I'm living in a house I got for myself. My parents still ask me to live with them. But honestly, out of guilt, I got a house close to my company. Of course, I often go to my parents' house because of my mom's health, but fortunately, my mom has gotten much better, and my dad's work is still going well, so I have nothing to worry about. I'm also still living a normal life, working at my job. Since I don't have any headaches anymore, life couldn't be more peaceful. Since I'm still young, I hear people telling me to remarry. But honestly, I'm not interested in remarrying. I'm just content with living like this, with nothing going wrong, and with my parents and me staying healthy. I found out that nothing is more important than health. I hope you all take good care of your health. And I'll end my story here. I'm doing better than anyone else these days, having moved on from the pain of divorce. So please cheer for my life, and thank you for listening until the end. Always be healthy.